right. All right. Hey, guys, how's everybody doing? How is everybody doing? Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We've got a lot to uncover after one of the worst rankings that I've ever seen from the College Football Playoff Committee. So we are here, of course, to break all of that down for you, and we're going to take your comments tonight. We're also going to take some calls tonight. We'll put that number out in the chat here very, very soon. We want to hear from you and hear your thoughts and reactions on, again, what was a shocking night from the top 25 and from the College Football Playoff Committee. Zach Z, happy to have you. Keto, nice to have you. Hunter5657, as he does, say hello. So Hunter, so happy to have you, man. Always happy when you're able to be here. OC54, Spotlight Productions. Scott Van Kale, of course, so loco, they need some hot cocoa. I like the play on words there, Scott. Eddie Rose, we'll talk about the bowl game soon and our format for that coming up very soon. And Chris and everybody else, thank you all so much for 6,000 subs. Yeah, we've gotten a lot of comments on that lately, a lot of support on that lately, and I can't thank you all enough. I cannot thank you all enough for 6,000 subscribers. You know, it was not just, about 2 years ago, about this time 2 years ago, give or take, that we were just a little over 1,000, hovering around 1,200, somewhere around there. And now here we are at 6,000 subscribers. It's surreal. It's unreal. And we're also, and it's not going to show it if you look, but it might tomorrow, we just hit a million cumulative views today. 1 million cumulative views today on our Week 16 Conference Championship prediction video. So, I mean, seriously, it's unbelievable. And I can't thank you all so much for the support, for being here for 4 years now. I mean, again, for a content creator, guys, and for a guy that just loves college football and wants to sit here at 10 o'clock, 10:30 Central Time just to talk ball with you guys and to have that kind of stuff, it's all possible because of you. It is all possible because of subscribers and viewers and fans like you guys. So again, thank you all so much, and here's to 7,000 and hopefully soon the big 10K. Carlos, good to have you. Scott, like the shirt. That's one thing I want to touch on before we get going. We got some Gridiron expert gear. We're wearing the shirt tonight. We've got our own, if you can see it, it might be backwards, but we got the Gridiron expert cup tonight. We're starting to launch merchandise. And we'll touch more on that here in a few days. We're going to put a video out on that, but we have partnered with a local clothing company called Woovy, Woovy, and are so thrilled to be working with them. They have agreed to create our merchandise, create our shirts, create our sweatshirts for Gridiron Expert, and a good amount of those proceeds that we make from selling these shirts and from selling our merchandise will be given back into the community. We'll be giving back to some scholarship foundations, not just here in Arkansas, but for nationally as well. So I'm super thrilled to have partnered with them, super thrilled for the opportunity to start working with Woovy. And again, we'll touch more on that here in a few days, but this thing, I love it. Been wearing this nonstop since I got it. So Scott, I appreciate that. And if y'all ever want one, I'll try to hook you up with a discount. Cameraman Edits, good to have you. Keto, yeah. Definitely add us in the chat. Make sure to hit an @ in the chat. We can see your views, comments a little bit better, especially if we're on the phone quite a bit tonight. Spybot 11-7, 117, nice to see you. And Carlos, I'm the GOAT. I don't know if I can take credit for that, but I'm certainly not going to argue with you. So I appreciate you, Carlos. All right, real quick, a couple of questions. We're going to open up the calls, the phone lines. How do I feel about Iowa State? Hunter, I like them. I like Iowa State a lot right now. Number 6 in the country in these new rankings. They're probably not going to make the college football playoff because the committee just certainly isn't going to let that happen. Even if they beat Oklahoma. But I like them to beat Oklahoma. We predicted Iowa State to beat Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship game, and this is a very, very good Iowa State team that I know they're ranked 6, but to a lot of people outside of Ames and I guess maybe outside the committee, ironically, they're not getting enough respect and they're not getting talked about enough. Everybody think Oklahoma is a shoo-in to win the Big 12 title this Saturday, and That is far from the case, far from it. So I love this Iowa State team. They're legit. They are legit. My thoughts on the Rose Bowl possibly getting moved down to Dallas. I know California is very bad right now with COVID-19 cases. I know a lot of those California teams, I know San Jose State and a few other schools have kind of had to move and haven't been able to play at home with all the cases kind of rising. I know that's kind of been a government deal, the governors and the mayors or whatever issuing those things. I would hate it if the Rose Bowl got moved to Dallas. I personally would, but I would rather see the college football playoff game be played. I would rather see it get to be played than not played at all. So if that's what we have to do, if we have to find a way to get it down to Dallas so it can be played, then so be it. Scott, would a computer system instead of a committee help determine the top 4 spots? Yes, 100% it would. It 100% would. The BCS, it wasn't perfect. The BCS was never perfect, but it was sure as heck better than what this committee has been putting out. 100%. If the computer is going to take into the same criteria, they're going to take into account the same criteria that the committee is taking in: margin of victory, quality of wins, strength of schedule. They're going to take all those things into account and make the right decisions. They're not going to be biased. They're not going to be biased, and the computer systems aren't going to be programmed to think about money. They're not going to be programmed to think about TV ratings like our athletic directors and our experts on the College Football Playoff Committee. And that's what we're going to talk about later tonight. The committee is extremely biased, and college football, before our very eyes, has become extremely political. And we're not doing anything about it. We have to do something about it. And I know us as fans and a couple of channels around here, we're not going to be able to do anything. But we need our big dogs, other athletic directors, big-time analysts, your guys on College Game Day. They need to step up and make sure something changes here. Problem is they're not, because again, it's political. They dare talk back on the committee. They dare show any sort of backlash against it. Their job's out. They're done. And that's, again, political. It's corrupt. It's a very, very corrupt system. And again, we're going to talk more about it. We're going to break it down here a little bit, but it's bad. It's bad, guys. Very, very bad. I think I saw my guy Morgan Thomas. I did. Morgan Thomas show. Hey, Morgan, so good to see you, my man. Congrats again with Clemson still being number 3. We knew that would happen, and I feel pretty good about your Tigers taking care of business on Saturday against Notre Dame. But guys, if you haven't seen the Morgan Thomas show, if you haven't been over to the Morgan Thomas show, go give it a look. Big-time Clemson fan, but some great analysis over there, not just for Clemson football, but on the national stage as well. So Morgan, thank you so much for stopping by tonight, my man. And keep up the great work. We'll have to collaborate again really soon. All right, let's see what else we have here. Let's see. Keto, Cincinnati at number 9 has you very frustrated. Same with Ohio State at number 4. And that will be our last question in the chat before we open up the phone lines. And again, we're going to go back and forth. But Keto, I agree. I'm very frustrated with that. You know why they moved Cincinnati down to number 9? You know what their reasoning was? Some of their reasoning was? Because they haven't played a game in since November 21st, November 28th, however long it's been. They haven't played a game in a while. So we're going to punish you. We're going to punish you for not having played a game. You want to know how many games Ohio State's played since November 21st? 1. 1 game since November 21st. It's a double standard. If you are an elite team, if you have that name recognition, you're going to get the benefit of the doubt. You're going to get the benefits more than a group of 5 team. Cincinnati being dropped to 9th tonight because they haven't played enough games, or they haven't played a game recently. You can't tell me, you can't do that to Cincinnati and not do the same to Ohio State. It's a double standard. It's biased. Ohio State has played 5 games. Alabama has played 10. Notre Dame has played 10. Clemson has played 10. The 3 teams that are in the top 4 right now have all played 10 games. Ohio State has played half of that. And the Big Ten changed their rules, changed their setup, so Ohio State could get into the Big Ten championship. Would they do that for anybody else? Absolutely not. So, Keto, I am livid. I am livid. Cincinnati being dropped to 9th tonight basically said they have no chance whatsoever of making the college football playoff. Cincinnati could go out there on Saturday, beat Tulsa by 100 points, and they would not make the college football playoff. That is what the committee told us tonight. That is what the committee told us. And if Cincinnati, in a year like this, can't make the college football playoff, then that group of 5 team, and I hate to say it in absolutes, but will never make the college football playoff. It's just not going to happen. Because this Cincinnati team is dang good. And if they're going to keep dropping them slowly, they were dropped last week. They were dropped again this week for no reason at all. It wasn't their fault they couldn't play games. There's this thing called COVID going around. We're going to help Ohio State battle COVID and help them play for a national title, but Cincinnati, we don't care about you. We don't care about you. Tell me where and how that's right, because it's not. It's ridiculous. Cyclone Mitch, good to see you. Emperor of Rome, good to see you. Glad to see you guys on here tonight. Comic Dude 45, or Comic Dude now, excuse me, no more 45. Nice to see you on here. We do need a separate group of 5 playoff, or dare I say, why don't we just expand? How scary and how difficult is that? It takes no effort at all. It's not that hard to say, we're going to expand to 8, we're going to expand to 16. You bounce, you cut the season a little bit short, you extend the season by a week or 2, you just expand the playoffs, and that's a very simple process. It's not like it's that difficult. A 4-team playoff was not that difficult to arrange. 8-team playoff sure isn't. You do that, we're probably not having a lot of these conversations. We're probably not. So it's really jacked up. It really, really is. And I want to hear some of your thoughts tonight, and we, of course, are going to talk a lot on your comments tonight. We will touch on everything as much as we can. Can't guarantee we're going to get to everything, but let's go ahead and open up the phone lines, because I do want to hear from you guys. And let me grab that number real quick. I'm going to put it in the chat here periodically so we can get some calls and get your thoughts on, again, what I thought was one of the worst college football playoff rankings that I have ever seen. And this has been going on now since 2014, 6 years now. And it has been a very, very bad setup. Eddie Rose, thoughts on Vanderbilt hiring Notre Dame's defensive coordinator? Clark Lee, yeah, great hire. Excellent hire. Notre Dame, for the past few years, has had one of the better defenses in the country. And so when we get a couple calls, it's probably going to glitch up a little bit because, of course, my iPhone is connected to all my other Apple products. But Hunter, I saw your phone was at 4%, so I'm glad you're able to call in. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I just have a couple of questions for you and the viewers that they can answer for me.
Yeah, lay it on me, Hunter. What you got?
All right. What are your thoughts on these rankings? Because, they're super biased, and they really should not even do this. They should be based off of votes or something other than these college football playoff committees, because they suck bad.
Yeah, no, it's kind of what we talked about earlier, right when the show began. The committee, and we're going to talk more on it later. I've actually got a couple numbers I'm wanting to share with everybody that are furthermore going to show why the committee is so corrupt. But Hunter, unfortunately, college football is a business, and while the college football playoff committee was originally supposed to be created to make sure the top 4 teams got in and to rank the teams as fairly as possible, over the years it has not become that. It has become more of an opportunity to get the top 4 teams in that are going to make the most money and are going to provide the most exciting and entertaining games. It's biased, it's corrupt, it's very political. And that is really, I think, has happened over the last probably 3 or 4 years that we've seen the shift of college football to where it's become more corrupt in trying to benefit these elite teams, the Alabamas, the Clemsons, the Ohio States. And those guys, those teams are good, Hunter, and I think everybody else can agree with that. Those teams have deserved spots in the playoffs and have deserved the success that they've had. But when you slip up, when you lose, when you struggle, you don't deserve to not get punished for that compared to other teams. There's a double standard out there. Would the Big Ten have made changes for Wisconsin or Indiana or Penn State or Michigan? Would they have made those changes for them like they did for Ohio State? Would the College Football Playoff Committee have dropped a team like that only 1 spot after a loss to an LSU team that was 3-5? Would they have dropped them 1 spot like they did Florida? Or would they have dropped them 6 or 7 like they would have done for every other team? So The playoff committee is just very corrupt, Hunter, and unfortunately, there's nothing that we can do about it.
So I just have three more questions I need to ask you, and then I'll get off the line to let somebody else go.
Okay.
But I have a question about the Heisman watch. How do you feel Kyle Trask and Mac Jones, and how their chances are going to play out during this SEC championship?
Yeah, I think that very well could decide who wins the Heisman, Hunter. I think that's one of the most anticipated quarterback battles of the season, one of the most anticipated games of the season, and somehow it's still a top 10 matchup. But whoever performs better in that game, whether it's Kyle Trask or Mac Jones, I think could very well win the Heisman. And there's even a chance that Trevor Lawrence, if he has a great game against Notre Dame, can keep his Heisman hopes alive. But even after the 3 turnover performance against LSU, I think Kyle Trask is still your front runner, and it's going to take one heck of a performance or one very bad performance from Trask in the SEC championship for him to lose that.
All right. I have 2 more questions about. My first question that I'm going to ask about these 2 are: how do you feel about Ohio State getting babied by the College Football Playoff Committee?
Ohio State doesn't deserve to be where they are, in my opinion. They're a very good team, but they're 5-0, and like we mentioned earlier, every other team that's in the top 4 with them right now has played 10 games. They've played 10 games. So when you've got teams that have played 10 games, and Ohio State would make the playoff as of right now for playing half as many games, I think that's ridiculous. And I think it's also ridiculous that the Big Ten catered to the Buckeyes and allowed them to make the Big Ten championship when originally the rules were you had to play a minimum of 6 games, which clearly the Buckeyes did not.
All right, and that was my last question I need to ask you about the Acc Conference Championship. What do you think's going to win?
I've got Clemson winning that one, Hunter. It should be relatively close. I think a lot of people think Clemson's going to dominate. I don't think they're going to blow Notre Dame out like people think, but I do think Clemson gets their revenge. Now they're going to be at full strength, unlike they were the first time they met in South Bend.
All right, that's all I have to ask you, and also congrats on 6K, man. It's been a journey, and congrats.
Hey, Hunter, I appreciate it, man. You've been there since the start, so thanks so much for the support, and we'll talk to you soon, all right?
All right, bye.
I appreciate you, Hunter.
All right.
All right, that was Hunter 5657, obviously a loyal Gridiron expert subscriber, and I think always when he's on the line has always been the first caller in our call-in shows. I mean, he is on it every time. So Hunter. So we're getting a call from Tallahassee. We've got Dontron on the line, and again, guys, don't think I'm going to forget about you guys in the chat. We are going to go back up, hit everybody in the chat later, and scroll through those. So stay with us. If you leave and come back, don't worry, we're going to get to your comments. But Dontron, let's talk for a minute. How's it going?
All right, it's going good. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I know you have got to be thrilled, and we're going to talk about this here in a little bit in deeper analysis, but you have to be thrilled with Florida being at number 7 right now, somehow only dropping 1 spot after the LSU loss.
Yeah, I feel like Florida should have dropped just a couple more ranks because the playoff committee, like you said, is just really corrupt.
Yeah, it is. And I don't ever want you to think I'm being too harsh on your Gators or anything, but I know we had them ranked at 17th in our rankings, had them dropping 11. And again, I've got some numbers I'll share with you guys on why we did that and why we think the committee is wrong for only dropping Florida a spot. But, the Gators are still in playoff contention in a way for if they somehow can beat Alabama, only dropping down to 7th.
Yeah, my question was, how do you think it'll go? Like, do you think Florida has the edge over Alabama, or do you think Alabama's still going to dominate Florida?
Dontron, I'll be honest with you. I really do think that Alabama's going to dominate Florida. I don't want to say that to you. I really don't. But Florida has got a heck of an offense. They're up there as one of the best in the country. We know that. The scary thing is, the unfortunate thing is, Alabama's a little bit better offensively. They have a little bit more weapons than Florida, and Alabama certainly owns that defensive edge, and that's the key. You're going to be in a shootout, a potential shootout down in Atlanta with 2 of the best quarterbacks in the country. And in shootouts, you need a defense. Which team's going to get the most stops? Which team's going to force the most turnovers? And that's going to be Alabama, who's arguably been the top defense over these past 7 to 8 weeks. So unless Florida wakes up being 7th, I think they have newfound life. I think they have newfound life knowing that if they pull off this upset, they could get into that 4th spot. But I just don't know if their defense is up for this challenge.
Yeah, so my last question is, what do you think about Kyle Trask's Heisman chances?
I think they're really, really good right now. I think he has to be the front runner for many. I know Mac Jones is in there. I know Devontae Smith is getting a lot of support, and rightfully so. I know Trevor Lawrence is getting a lot of support still. But I think Trask was the front runner going into last week. Everybody has a bad game. You know, he had 3 turnovers, but let's not forget he threw for over 400 yards in that game too, and put them in a position still in the final seconds for a chance to send that game to overtime had Evan McPherson not missed the kick. So I still think you can't ignore those stats. You can't ignore those facts. And so I think for me, he's still my front runner. He's still my front runner, and I think unless he just tanks in the SEC championship game, I think he's got it in the bag. If he goes out there and throws for 350 and 4 touchdowns against Alabama, it's his. He's clinched it.
Yeah. So that was all. Thank you for answering my questions. Congrats on 6,000. I know it's a big milestone for you.
It is. It's a very big milestone, and I really appreciate it, Don Tron. I love getting all your comments. Love seeing all of your stuff you've got in our comment section. And again, thanks so much for the support, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, so that was Don Tron all the way down from Tallahassee, Florida, talking some Gators football. Again, the SEC Championship being played Saturday. We have analysis. They have completely disrespected the Group of 5. They have completely disrespected the Group of 5, and like we mentioned earlier, that them dropping Cincinnati down to number 9 was the biggest, punch in the face.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Georgia fan, and I think that's crazy. I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, look, I had Georgia at number 9 in my rankings, so putting them up at number 8 is fine with me. But like we mentioned earlier, throwing Cincinnati down to number 9. Basically just told everybody they have no shot of making the playoff.
They're not even in consideration now for the playoffs, going into Conference Championship weekend, which is crazy. I mean,
well, and they should be.
My takeaway.
And they should be. They should be a part of the playoff. They should be a part of that discussion.
Yeah, especially in a year like this. They absolutely should at least be in consideration, but it's where they're ranked.
Yeah, that's my thing. I look at it. I mean, in a year like this with all the COVID stuff, Ohio State's played 5 games. A&M's not going to make the championship game. Iowa State's got 2 losses. Florida's got 2 losses. Georgia's got 2 losses. All those teams ahead of them.
Yeah.
If you can't be in playoff discussion as a Group of 5 team this year, then you're never going to see a Group of 5 team in discussion.
Yeah, they're never going to. They may as well just make their own playoff.
and I wouldn't be surprised to see the Group of 5 do that. I really wouldn't be surprised to see them do that.
I would too. I would watch it. That'd be great.
I think they've got to be fed up with this this disrespect. I mean, because this has been arguably the best year for the Group of 5. I mean, San Jose State, Tulsa, Louisiana.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really good Group of 5 teams out there. San Jose, Cincinnati, Coastal, Louisiana. Marshall was up there. I mean, there's a lot of great teams. They're not getting recognized.
Exactly. They're not getting recognized. In a way, they are getting recognized. I mean, for some of these teams, being ranked is a huge deal. It's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. I mean, I can't remember the last time we had multiple Sun Belt teams that are ranked in the top 20 right now. That's unbelievable. But, again, Coastal and Cincinnati are the top 2 Group of 5 teams right now, both undefeated, both have quality wins, and yet neither have a shot at the playoff. And I know you can argue strength of schedule, but again, I think it's a major slap in the face. And the reasoning, again, too, for Cincinnati being dropped consistently back-to-back weeks, the reasoning was the fact they haven't played a game in the past 3-4 weeks. The same goes for Ohio State, and you don't see them being dropped at all.
Yeah, I mean, the committee using that is crap I've ever heard.
Yeah, well, the committee's full of it. The committee's full of it. They don't know what they're talking about. It's made up of athletic directors that, and I don't mean to criticize all athletic directors, but they don't know football. That's the problem. They really
don't. I mean, it's like you question whether they even watch the games. I mean, when you look at these rankings, it's crazy.
They don't. That's the thing. They don't. They're so caught up in their own individual schools, and rightfully so. I understand that. But if you're going to be on a national committee, you need to watch the games. You need to break down the games, analyze the games. And they thought this would be
as fair as possible.
And they thought this would be a good idea by bringing in so many different athletic directors and people from different schools and around the country, thinking that would be fair. But in a way, I think it has made it a lot worse.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you there.
So yeah, it's insane. I just I've been really speechless. And again, we've got a couple numbers kind of justify our reasoning for our rankings yesterday, but also why the committee was very flawed in their rankings tonight. Are you still with us, Sam?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, perfect. Well, we're going to jump off for a second. We're going to give everybody a chance to come jump back in. But again, Sam, thanks so much for calling in, man. And we're going to be back on here very, very soon and look forward to talking some more.
Yeah, great talking to you, man.
Yeah, you too, man. Thanks for calling in. Yeah, and I'm going to be mentioning that as well right after this. All right, man. I'll talk to you soon. All right, so that was all college football. Good friend Sam, who does a phenomenal job, not just running his own Instagram page, All College Football, which, again, is one of the biggest college football Instagram pages in the country. Over 100. Give him a look. You need to go give him a look.
Press 1.
And we've got another caller here. We're going to put you on mute for 1 second.
Okay.
But one of the biggest pages there, and Sam does a phenomenal job helping run our page, the Gridiron Expert Instagram page. It's at Gridiron Expert on Instagram or at Gridiron Expert on Twitter. You need to go check it out. He does phenomenal work over there. And running multiple accounts is a very tall task. I think I've got it cut out for me running this one. Can't imagine running multiple at one time. So Sam doing a phenomenal job across the board. I want to touch on a couple comments real quick, and then we're going to get to our caller. We're going to keep cycling through. I saw a couple earlier. We had some technical difficulties from a few people. I didn't see any on my end. I guess there was. So I apologize for that. And if it happens again, we're going to do everything we can to get it fixed as quickly as possible. So bear with us. I think sometimes when we get calls and it pops up on our iPad and in our laptop, I think it kind of screws some things up here. But Emperor of Rome and Scott, thank you guys both for reminding everybody to like the video. All 40 people on the chat right now, I appreciate you guys so much for joining us on a late night college football discussion. And I just want to skim through a couple comments here. Cyclone Mitch, Iowa State's offensive line, easily the most improved of 2020. I would agree with that. I think they've allowed just 10 sacks this season. 10 sacks this season, that's unreal. And that's going to be a major key in the Big 12 championship game on Saturday. Let's see what else we've got. Dion, the Toronto Raptors are the best NFL team, no contest. Dion, they could beat the New York Jets right now. I'm not going to lie about that. Good to see you, my man. Uncle Luke, good to see you. John DeLorto, also on the line. Nice to see you, John. Can't argue strength of schedule for Oklahoma over Cincy. They both played two ranked teams. Cincinnati has played 3 more games. You're not wrong there. In a way, strength of schedule too. Quality of opponents, yes, but you can also look at how well Cincinnati has dominated their opponents, more so than Oklahoma. I think we both agree that Cincinnati should be ranked much higher than what they are. Cyclone Mitch saying Charlie Brewer should retire. I know Scott Van Kale doesn't want to hear that. Doesn't have the arm strength like he used to because he's been hurt. He's been getting injured so much, and you know that. Scott knows that firsthand, so hopefully he can turn things around and succeed as a grad transfer because, I mean, he's a class act and was such a major reason for Baylor's turnaround last year where they nearly made the college football playoff. And, all right, we're kind of cut up on the live stream right now. And John mentioning OSU, I agree with both anyways. And Cincinnati playing way more games than Ohio State. I think everybody's played more games than Ohio State and certainly don't deserve as much attention and hype as they're getting, playing 5 while everybody else has played a lot of them played 10, most of them at least 8. And Will Burrow, good to see you as well. I'm sure you're all grouped together tonight. All right, we've got a caller with us right now. Who do we have on the line right now?
You have Cole Converse.
Cole Converse, my man. How are you doing?
Not doing too bad. First and foremost, as you've been told by
Hey, well, man, I really appreciate it. You certainly have been there since day one, all the way back uh, since like 2017. So your continued support, seriously, is what keeps this thing going. So I really, really appreciate that, and I'm looking forward to continue to see it grow. Um, we've come a long way, as I've seen you mention in the comment section. Come a long way since that really, really bad Iowa State prediction a few years ago.
Well, I mean, in order to have peaks, you have to have valleys, right?
Yeah, you're right about that. You're right about that. So
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, a few things about tonight and everything. I guess, first and foremost, I think when we're looking at the whole playoff structure, I think it's entirely possible that Iowa State could be credited for both the destruction of the Bowl Championship Series and the destruction of the college football 14 playoff format as we know it. Where if you remember, in 2011, and I'll say it was the greatest $5 I ever spent. It was a ticket to Jack Trice Stadium for a Friday night game against number 2 Oklahoma State. And the Cyclones pulled off a little bit of the upset in the first century, knocking out Lee and Blackman and Company and winning the postseason. And shortly after that, it triggered Alabama number 2 in the national championship. A bunch of Power 5 ADs got mad, and then they adopted the college football playoff system. Now, this year, for better or for worse, you could see the Cyclones. They're going to be a very good Oklahoma team, much improved, gaining experience. But, I still think Iowa State has a decent chance at validating their win the first time and, showing that it wasn't a fluke. But if that happens and, say, Clemson loses to Notre Dame or Ohio State loses to Northwestern, something that happens where the Cyclones get into the top 4, I wouldn't be surprised if that is the catalyst that causes massive restructuring of the 14 college football playoff system. So I guess when push comes to shove, if you want something to change, the Cyclones will always get involved.
Well, I think in a way you were right, and for those of you that maybe weren't able to hear Cole, he's crediting Iowa State for both the destruction of the BCS and the college football playoff. Of course, back in 2011, as Cole mentioned, Iowa State beating Oklahoma State, who was the second-ranked team in the country, and in doing so, that allowed for Alabama and LSU to meet in the national championship game, which infuriated everybody and led to the creation of the playoff. And now here we go again with Iowa State being ranked 6th. They're a 2-loss team, and if things potentially go their way, and they very well could, you could see the Cyclones maybe get into that top 4. And we're going to break down playoff scenarios for the ones that are feasible. We're going to break those down on Friday. And Iowa State sneaking into the top 4, while not probable, it is feasible. And like you said, if you want things to change and get done, then maybe you just need to bring in Iowa State, because they've honestly, Cole, back in the day, I was thrilled when the BCS ended. I think we were all looking forward to a playoff, and now here we are with the playoff, and it's ridiculous. It's garbage. It's kind of a disgrace and a slap in the face to many teams across the country. So I know people are going to say we can't be pleased. We college football fans can't be pleased. You didn't like the BCS. We gave you the playoff, which is what you wanted. Now we've got a playoff, and now we're upset about that. But the problem is, we're pleased with what we've got. We're not pleased with the way it is run. If we had competent people running the playoff, competent people, in the selection process, we would be happy with it. And I think that's kind of the big storyline we're dealing with right now, and certainly what sparked so much discussion after tonight.
Well, Alex, I tell your viewers this, and you yourself. I mean, should we be surprised? I mean, let's look at this entire season here. Who almost ruined single-handedly the 2020 college football season for me launching out? Big Ten academics. And now, who is the chair of the college football playoff committee that everybody thinks is that a lot of people think is disastrous? Now, granted, Iowa State, I like their ranking right now, but a lot of people complain about
want something to end this disaster in a way that people aren't satisfied with, you just put it in the hands of a Big Ten academic. I really think you need people who are former coaches. I think you need business savvy people, and I think you need to get outside of the realm of academics who are making these type of decisions that you are going to have the general public have confidence that things are going to wind up in a way that is satisfactory. Now, I've always been a proponent that the playoff system, 8 teams, 5 Power 5, the best non-Power 5. I would do a wrinkle that maybe most wouldn't do, though. I would do one at large, and I would do the winner of the Commander-in-Chief trophy. I think that would really put a wrinkle into it that I think a lot of fans would enjoy. And, that way you take out a lot of subjectivity involved. I'd have the 4 quarterfinal games that, for the Southern Bowl sides, like the Getty Rose Bowl, PS Bowl, Sugar Bowl, Orange Bowl, some of those 4. And a lot of Southern teams are going to hate this idea, but, a lot of Big 12 schools kind of gotten used to it, and Matt Campbell, especially the Texas schools, especially the regular season. I would make the semifinal games up in northern climates, like Lambeau Field, Soldier Field, Mile High Stadium, CenturyLink Field, Gillette Stadium. If you're going to be a national champion, I think you should have to win in all climates and environmental surfaces. You should be tested across the board. And I think there's a lot of hope and changes that would be healthy that need to be made. But, the moral of the story is, if you want something to end the disaster, just trust the Big Ten academic.
I'm not going to argue with that. Cole, I'm going to let you go real quick so we can get another caller in, but I'm going to touch on the rest of your comments there. I like exactly what you said about, first off, the Commander-in-Chief's trophy, but also the different climates. We're going to touch on that here in 1 second, but I'm gonna let you go so we can open up the lines again.
All right, thank you.
Hey, appreciate it, man. So that was Cole Converse, big Iowa State fan, and we're going to take some more calls here in a second, but I do want to touch on what Cole was saying. For those of you that weren't able to hear him, he was talking about the playoff expansion. That's something that I think we all want. We all want to see, and it's time. It's time to see something. Whether it's 8, whether it's 12, whether it's 16, whatever it needs to be, we need to see expansion. And Cole offering some great ideas for that expansion and how it would be run. And real quick, I gave him shout outs in the chat, but I want to do it again. Sam, Georgia's DM, thank you so much for that super chat donation. And Earl of Sandwich, a huge super chat donation. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. Guys, that does not go unnoticed. It does not go unnoticed. And again, that money thrown right back into the channel. We are working on a bunch of new graphics. We're working on a bunch of new updates for the channel, and certainly stuff we're going to work on a lot this off season to make 2021, hopefully a normal year, one of the best yet that we've ever had on the channel. So guys, thank you so much for that. And again, thank you for all the views, the likes, the comments, and the support as always. But as Cole was saying, he was thinking maybe 8 teams. And of course, you want your Power 5 champions in there. That seems obvious. That seems fair that you would put in your Power 5. That's usually how it works anyways, even though there's only 4 spots and there are 5 Power 5 conferences. But he mentioned the Commander-in-Chief's trophy winner, Air Force, Navy, or Army, and that could be a bit of a stretch. That could be a little bit of a stretch for some to do that. But, I would love to see an Army team. I would love to see some of these elite teams go up against that triple option that those military academies run. Army, Navy, Air Force. I'd love to see, Clemson try to stop that. And Ohio State, Alabama. Notre Dame tends to do it on a regular basis. They usually play Navy every single year. And they do a pretty dang good job of it. Navy's been nothing this year anyways. But outside the point, it would be interesting to see some of these elite teams go up against an offense that they normally don't face in their individual conferences. So maybe you throw one of them in there, or maybe you throw them in some sort of special bowl game, put them up against some more elite opponents. I'd like to see that. And then obviously setting the different matchups in different regions of the country. If you want to, as Cole was saying, being a national champion, you should be able to win in any sort of environment, any sort of setting. And while I do like that, again, because college football is so political, it would never happen. While it would be great to see a playoff game at Lambeau Field or Gillette Stadium, you throw some games out in California, you throw Soldier Field in Chicago. It's never going to happen. Capacity is such a big deal. Location is such a big deal. They want people there. They want ratings there. And let me tell you what, I think Soldier Field up in Chicago is amazing. I think Lambeau Field up in Green Bay is amazing. Two of the most historic fields and stadiums in the NFL. I love it. And I would never turn down an opportunity to watch a game there, whether it's in person or on TV. ESPN, NCAA, they would. They would. Because it's not flashy enough. We need Dallas. We need Arlington. We need Jerry's World. We need the Rose Bowl, which is, of course, historic. We need the new Levi Stadium out in San Francisco. Need the Superdome in New Orleans. Those are all great venues, don't get me wrong. Can fit a lot in there. This time of year, December, January, weather can get rough, so sure, I'd rather be inside, sure, than outside in 20-degree temperatures, but still. Unfortunately, we're never going to get to see those type of that type of game, that scale of a game, that is never going to be played at a venue, as Cole was mentioning, and that is unfortunate. So interesting decisions by Cole, interesting ideas, and hey, look, I'd love to put together my own little committee and see if we couldn't rival the playoff committee. I'm sure if I put together a handful of you guys along with me and a handful of other YouTube analysts out there, I think if we all used our brains, I guarantee our collective IQ when it comes to football is better than the guys on the committee. I guarantee we make decisions when it comes to the top 25 teams, when it comes to the top 4 teams, and when it comes to venues and decision makings across the board. Plain and simple. All right, we're knocking at 45 minutes here now, and we've taken a handful of calls. I know we haven't taken as many as some have wanted, and we maybe haven't gotten to as many people. Let me open that up real quick. As many people as everybody wanted, but the phone lines, of course, are still open for anybody that wants them. And we'll put that number out here in a second, but I want to get to some people in the chat. a little bit and offer our insight on a few more things about the rankings tonight. And, of course, answer any other questions that we have. So I'm going to scroll up at random. And Ben Ormond, I appreciate you, my man. Again, every little bit counts. Every little bit counts for Super Chat. Every like counts. Every view counts. So, again, thank you, Ben. Thank you, Georgia DM, Sam, of course, Earl of Sandwood, everybody else that has donated either tonight or in the past. Again, really, really appreciate it and does not go unnoticed. Ben, your North Carolina State Wolfpack looking pretty dang good right now. A top 25 team, 22nd in tonight's rankings, and will be finding themselves in a very decent bowl game here in a few weeks or next week. So really looking forward to that. Heck of a turnaround for them after such a disappointing 2019. All right, so I'm just going to scroll up the last time I commented, and I know we might miss some, and if we have a question we didn't get to, say it again. We'll get to it. Let's see here. Mina, good to see you. You've got Clemson beating Notre Dame in the ACC Championship. I do too. Let's see. Ben also thinks that Notre Dame is the better team over Clemson. That's an interesting take. Notre Dame barely beating Clemson in South Bend when Clemson was shorthanded, we should say. Can they get the win over a full-strength Clemson team? Let's see what else we have here. Christian Gonzalez, if only DM was here, and I'm sure he might be watching this later on. DM, one of the biggest FCS fans and advocates that I know of, and Christian, I like that. I like that comment a lot. An FCS-style tournament would be a breath of fresh air for the FBS. I fully agree, Christian. For those of you that don't know, the FCS does, I believe, it's a 24-team playoff, if I'm not mistaken. You have to earn your spots. The FCS is arranged the exact same way as the FBS. They've got multiple different conferences. They've got multiple different teams scattered all across the country. They're just at a lower level than the FBS. But every year, they take the top 24 teams, or 32, however many it is, they take the top teams and put them into a playoff. And you go from there. You go from there. It is like the NCAA tournament for basketball in a way, just on a smaller scale. And I really, genuinely don't understand why every other sport and every other sport at every other level can get this right, while the FBS, which is the highest level of college football, the most popular sport, I would say, in America right now, why they fail to get it right. The NFL has a good playoff system. They just expanded to 7 teams. I'm okay with that. They take the 7 teams that earned it, they're in. FCS, they've got it. MLB's got it. NBA's got it. I don't understand why it's so difficult. Every time you talk to some analyst out there, they say, well, playoffs, they're very difficult to arrange. They are, it's more complicated than just putting it together. It's not. Say what you want about TV deals, say what you want about money, forget the money. It's going to happen. If you go to somebody and say, we want 18 playoff, and you get enough support behind it, they're going to make it happen. 18 playoff, that's an extra 2 college football playoff games. That's extra money. What's not to like about that? So I don't understand, again, and I use this word a lot, and maybe I shouldn't, but it's the incompetence among our leaders at these individual universities and at the highest levels of the NCAA that are bringing the sport down, because the sport, again, has become way too political and way too corrupt for my liking, and clearly for a lot of you as well. Grayson, XX, the best college football channel out there. I appreciate it. Grayson, always leaving me some awesome comments on our videos as well. I believe you're a diehard Baylor fan too, just like Scott. And I genuinely really appreciate that. There's some other great channels out there, guys that I'm friends with, guys that I know, guys that I've worked with, and I love their content, and I'm happy to be in their company and happy to be where we are right now. Again, 6,000 views, 6,000 subs, 1 million cumulative views. Again, that's unreal. Something that numbers I never thought I would see. Continuing to scroll through here, Florida should not be in the playoff. Florida should not be where they are. And I'm glad we're getting back onto that topic, because I've got some stuff for you guys, and I think something that might make a little bit of sense. Obviously, the discussion about Ohio State that we're talking about. Let's see. Keto, totally agree with your thoughts on the committee. In my opinion, they totally started it just to make money. Started the playoffs just to make money. And look, I'm not even going to say that the playoff was created for money. That certainly is a role, and that was a factor. I genuinely do, as Cole mentioned earlier in our discussion, I believe the playoff was created following the events of 2011, when Iowa State beat Oklahoma State, and that opened the door for Alabama and LSU to meet in the national championship, even though obviously they're from the same conference, they're from the same division, and they had played in that year, with LSU winning that game down in Tuscaloosa, the infamous 9-6 overtime game. Boring for some, thrilling for others. That is what started the college football playoff, and somehow it took 3 years to put in motion and create. Again, it's not that hard. But since the playoff has taken off, and since it has slowly but surely become more popular, and certainly more controversial, it has become more political and has become a money thing. No doubt about it. And that's unfortunate. It is really, really unfortunate. And I want to talk more on that. I see a lot of comments out there right now, guys, about Florida. Listen to this. This is the number that blows my mind. Florida was the 6th ranked team in the country. They lost to an LSU team that was 3-5. 3-5 down the swamp. Florida's 23-point favorites. Again, stack the numbers, stack the facts for what happened on Saturday. 23-point favorites. Heisman Trophy candidate, the leader Heisman Trophy candidate. At home, 6th in the country. All right? At night, which sometimes plays a difference depending on where you are. All those things combined. LSU, they're 3-5. Their wins, Vanderbilt, South Carolina, Arkansas. No powerhouses. Nothing exciting there. Nothing really that impressive there. 3-5, no good wins. Just got annihilated by Alabama the week before in Death Valley, starting a quarterback in Max Johnson for the first time ever. His first ever start. Florida loses that game 37-34. They commit 3 turnovers, all coming from their Heisman Trophy quarterback. They miss a game-winning field goal. Marco Wilson throws a shoe. That ends up costing them the game. Their defense allows over 400 yards from an LSU team that's been struggling to move the ball. All those things combined, and they drop one spot in today's rankings. 6th to 7th. What part of that makes sense? None of it does. And let's think about this. Would the committee have done that for any other team? No. And before you say, well, how would you know? What did they do to Northwestern? Let's think about that for a second. Northwestern was 8th in the country. 8th in the country when they played Michigan State. They shot into the top 10 after that big win against Wisconsin. Forced 5 turnovers at home, taking down the Badgers, who I believe were a top 10 team at the time. Northwestern plays Michigan State, loses by 9. Really, my eyes have lost by 3. I know it was a 29-20 loss, but let's keep in mind that touchdown by Michigan State that was late, that ended up being off of that crazy hook and ladder play. Take that away, it's 23-20. Northwestern dropped from 8th to 14th. They dropped 6 spots. All right? Michigan State, to me, is at the same caliber, at the same level as LSU, at least at the time. So there is bias and there's corruptness there. Corruption, excuse me. A little fueled up right now. They dropped Florida 1 spot after that. They dropped Northwestern 6. They would have done Indiana dirty. They would have done, I think, Texas A&M dirty. Maybe not Texas A&M, they're SEC. Cincinnati, absolutely. Cincinnati does that. Cincinnati drops from 9th to 25th. You know? Coastal Carolina, USC, North Carolina. Anybody not from the SEC, and they drop a lot, losing a game like that. How can you can't say, oh, it was just a bad game. It wasn't just a bad game. Would you say that to anybody else? No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't. The committee moved Florida down 1 spot, again, to create this discussion, to create this potential, excitement on Selection Sunday. If Florida somehow wakes up and beats Alabama on Saturday, well then Florida might have a chance to get into the college football playoff. 2-loss team, but they're SEC champions. They just knocked off the number 1 team in the country. So they're leaving that there, leaving that door open for discussion. But you know what the better reason is? The bigger reason is as to why they only dropped 1 spot? Money. Only way. Number 1 Alabama, number 7 Florida. Sounds a lot better than number 1 Alabama, number 15 Florida, knowing that even if Florida wins, they can't get into the playoff. And I think the committee knows deep down that even if Florida wins, they're probably not getting in the playoff. Because Alabama's a lock, win or lose. Notre Dame should be a lock, win or lose. Ohio State's going to beat Northwestern, they're in. And if Clemson loses, I think they still stay in. But say they do and they drop out, it's going to be A&M or Iowa State, assuming Iowa State defeats Oklahoma. And if they don't, it's A&M or Florida. And I can see the committee still sliding Florida. Even though A&M didn't win the championship, A&M did win the head-to-head, so we're going to put them in. It just doesn't make sense, guys. It just doesn't make sense. Any other team loses at home as a 23-point favorite to a 3-5 team, they don't drop 1 spot. They don't drop 1 spot. They drop 5. They drop 6, 7, 8, sometimes 10. We've seen teams drop 10. They would punish them big time. Florida wasn't punished. Florida wasn't even close to being punished. And it's all because of the money. And it's all because of the bias that we have within the College Football Playoff Committee. And it's sickening. It really, really is. It's sickening. Another point I want to make, and I'm going to hit some more comments here in a section. Another point I want to make here, Clemson. And we're going to talk college football playoff scenarios on Saturday, or Friday, excuse me. We're going to put a whole video out for it. So you're not going to want to miss that. How each team can get in. Different scenarios. But this ties into what happened with Florida. The College Football Playoff Committee basically just set the precedent saying, hey, look, if you lose to a bad team and we like you and you're going to make us money, we're not going to punish you that much. Basically, what that tells me is if Notre Dame beats Clemson, Clemson's going to stay in the college football playoff. How can you say, oh, Florida, you lost to a 3-5 LSU team at home. You're only going to drop one spot. Clemson, you lost to the number 2 team in the country by 1 possession in the ACC Championship game. We're going to drop you 2 spots at least. How can you say that? How is that logical? Also, keep in mind, Clemson has Dabo Swinney, who will throw a fit if they're left out of the playoffs, win or lose, and one of the best quarterbacks in the future number 1 pick in the NFL, and Trevor Lawrence. So if you do that for Florida, you've got to do it for Clemson. How would that be fair? So basically what it looks like here is Alabama's a lock, Notre Dame's a lock, Clemson's a lock, win or lose, and Ohio State, assuming they beat Northwestern, and they probably will, they're a lock. There's a very good chance, guys, that the playoffs have already been set. The only things that are going to possibly change is who plays who. How are they ranked 1 through 4? But the 4 teams there are probably going to be your 4 teams on Sunday. The committee doesn't want you to believe that. They want you to get invested in championship weekend. There's probably no need to, because there's not going to be many shakeups. The one thing I could see the committee doing, though, you want to talk about corrupt. Is this. If Clemson beats Notre Dame the way people think they will, by blowing them out, 17 points, 21 points, 24, they beat them by more than 2 possessions, they might drop Notre Dame out. They shouldn't, but they very well could. And if they do, that opens the door for Texas A&M to get in. Maybe Iowa State if they beat Oklahoma. Florida certainly, if Florida beats Alabama. So if Clemson annihilates Notre Dame, they would be dropping the Fighting Irish, who's an undefeated team right now. They'd be dropping them at least 3 spots. And I can very well see it happen. Very well see it happening. So watch out, guys. The corruptness is, in the corruption, it's not over. It's never going to be over. The top 4 teams seem to be set, but there's a very good chance that they're going to throw us one last curveball on Selection Sunday, depending on what does happen on Saturday. And of course, we will break that down for you Saturday night / Sunday morning with our recap video. That'll come out early Sunday morning, and we're going to tell you the top 6 teams and who we think should be the top 6 teams. Might be relatively obvious, might not. But the committee is prepared to do anything they can, anything in their power, to twist it their way to the point where they will make more money and will draw in more viewers on New Year's Day. I want to hit a couple more comments here. A couple more points we'll make later, but I do want to hit a few more comments. Keto says he prefers the good old days of the BCS. You and me both. You and me both. The BCS was the way to go. That was it. Again, you make a computer program makes these rankings. It's not taking into account, bias towards a certain school. It's not taking into account money. It's taking into account who legitimately are the best teams. You talk about referees, human error. Referees make a bad call here and there. You're getting constant, consistent human error in the College Football Playoff Committee. You can walk into any room and say, I'm not biased. I'm going to make a well-informed decision based solely on the facts. And I'm not going to let my ties and my relationship to my school or my relationship with a friend at another school or conference, I'm not going to let that play any factor in my decisions on the College Football Playoff Committee. It's a lie. It's an absolute lie. Because it's all up here. It's all up here. I can say something and believe something else. I can say something and then turn around and do something else. And that's exactly what every single member on the College Football Playoff Committee is doing. Every single one, regardless of what they tell you. Their logic is flawed. They do not know. If you were able to catch it, Sam and I talked about it. They do not know a lick about football. These athletic directors need to stick in their office, make consistent, horrible hires at their individual schools like they tend to do. Stick in there, bring in money for their individual school, but don't go out there and screw over other schools. Don't screw over other schools. Stay in your office, do your job. Your job is not to pick these teams because you don't know what you're talking about. And if you do want to sit there and make rankings and pick these teams, why don't you decide to watch the games and not just watch your own team? All right, because let me tell you something. Never mind. Not going to say it. I'll hold that thought. These athletic directors don't need to be on the committee. End of story. All right, what else we got here? Playoffs should never be expanded, according to Brad Highwood. Interesting choice. I disagree with that. Let's see what else we have here. The Spot saying SEC bias. Absolutely, that's exactly what we have. Look, I'm not that the SEC is the best conference in the country. I do believe it is the best conference in the country. It doesn't mean that you have to put multiple teams in the playoff. If they're worthy of that, if that's the way it shapes out, fine. But you don't need to make the rankings the way they are to benefit the SEC. You know, you play the games for a reason. LSU Florida was a prime example of that. No one thought LSU was going to win that game, and they did. Florida should never drop one spot for that. Any given Saturday, all right? Any given Saturday. And if you lose, you lose. This is how it happens. That's what happens. That's all I can say. I mean, you're not supposed to be biased towards an individual team or conference to benefit yourself in the long run. That's exactly what they've done here. Scott Van Kale, committee needs to be consistent. I think Scott bolted on us. He had to go, but sick 'em Bears, as he always says. And Scott, if you come back and watch this later, we appreciate you. Thanks for stopping by. I hope you have a great rest of your night. Keto again. What also sucks is that most of us fans who care about the game so much almost get no say in this, which is frustrating, especially when the ESPN guys can't do it after us. And you're right. You know, I'm not gonna lie. I think you could tell if you watched the playoff show tonight, you could tell there was a lot of animosity towards the committee, a lot of shock from every analyst up there. You know, Reese Davis and Kirk Herbstreit, Joey Galloway, Palmer, all those guys up there tonight. I think they were all surprised. They had to choose their words carefully, though. You know, the committee may have done this because of this, or I guess I can kind of see where the committee's coming from. They had to choose their words carefully because you're right. They can't go out there and just berate the playoff committee because that's tied to ESPN. It's tied to the big corporate people, and if you fight back on the place that you work with and the people that you work with, you're going to be in trouble. You know, it's all tied together. It's political. You know, you should never ever ever mix politics with sports. And we necessarily haven't done that. We have politics in sports, and it's ruined it. It's ruined it. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that we will never know. The analysts on ESPN and CBS, they will never know. And that's scary to think about. That's scary to think about because in doing so, they are ruining the game. They are ruining the integrity of the game. And I think it's the biggest thing. The playoff committee, we want the best 4 teams in. Do you? Or do you want the best 4 teams in that are going to make you the most money and bring in the most revenue? All right, what else we got on? Clemson for life. What's going on, my man? If you're still here, we're happy to have you. Along with everybody else. 35 people on the line tonight. I know we fluctuated, but all 46 likes. Again, thank you so much. And we're thrilled to have everybody here at 11:15 Central Time. Still talking some college football again after a shocking night. The second to last set of playoff rankings. Again, these are such a big deal, too, because this is what we have going into championship weekend. So, again, like for Cincinnati, they're 9th now. They are not in the playoff hunt anymore. Again, they could beat Tulsa by 100. They will not be in the playoff hunt. They're not going to jump 5 spots. Teams ahead of them would need to lose. A team like Georgia has no chance at the playoff. You know, Florida would have to be, even if they beat Alabama, might not, but Florida, if they lose, I mean, you look at the teams ahead of Cincinnati, there's no way they're going to jump all of them, even if things start to go in their favor. So these rankings are such a big deal because that's what the committee is going to have to base it off of on Sunday, on Selection Sunday. And some teams have a deficit or have been put in a spot that will be too large to overcome or too difficult to overcome because they're going to need a little too much help. Or maybe they're going to need to do more themselves that they maybe just aren't capable of doing. Eli or Beza. I was just thinking about you the other day because, we were talking about the group of 5. I remember a few years ago, you and I had a long conversation about the group of 5. and their role in college football. Maybe we don't cover them as much. So Eli, I'm glad to see you here, and if you're still at Liberty or still a big Liberty fan, I'm sure you have to be thrilled with how well they have done this year, and hopefully for you, for your sake, Hugh Freeze stays with the Flames and doesn't leave for that Auburn job. I think it's maybe between him and Mario Cristobal of all people at Oregon. But your question, can someone explain to me why Iowa State is number 6? I can. Iowa State's a dang good football team. Same way that Oklahoma is number 10. Explain to me how Oklahoma's number 10. They were 1 and 2. Who have they beat? Nobody. That'd be anybody. They lost to Kansas State. You want to argue? You know, some people want to say Iowa State's their 6th. They lost to Louisiana. Louisiana's number 19 in the country right now. Good football team. Oklahoma's number 10. They lost to Kansas State. Where's Kansas State in these rankings? I don't see them. So you want to try to combine those and you point fingers. You can put the same at Oklahoma. So Oklahoma's hot right now. They've won 6 straight. Iowa State's hot right now. They've won 5 straight. Oklahoma beat Texas on a neutral site. Iowa State stormed into Texas and won in Austin. Iowa State beat the number 1 team, number 1 defense in the Big 12. Beat them 42-6. Beat Kansas State, who beat Oklahoma. Beat them 45-0. So Iowa State's hot right now. They're winning games, and they're winning in dominating fashion. They're winning in a big way. That's why they're number 6 in the country right now. Their only losses are to Louisiana, which I know was not good, but came in the first game of the season. Other loss was on the road, only by 3 points, to Oklahoma State, who the committee has ranked at number 21. Which again, if you have losses to teams that are currently still ranked, that helps your case. You never want to lose, but you'd rather lose to a team that's been playing relatively well over the course of the season. And Oklahoma State and Louisiana have done that. That helps Iowa State's case. They have a win over Oklahoma. Have a win over an improving TCU team. Dominated Kansas State. Dominated West Virginia. Won at Texas, number 20 team in the country. So I look at all those facts for Iowa State and the balance that they have and how well they continue to improve every single week. That is why they are 6th in the country. And of course, they've certainly had help from teams in front of them. Teams in front of them losing or not performing as well as many would expect. That's allowed them to jump into the top 10, all the way to the top 6, and put themselves in a very small position, a small chance to make the college football playoff. That is why the Cyclones are 6, and I believe they deserve that spot. I genuinely do. I don't think Coastal and Cincinnati deserve to be in the playoff right now, but I believe they deserve to be in the hunt. Cincinnati more so than Coastal Carolina. Cincinnati absolutely more so than Coastal Carolina. I love the Chanticleers. I love what they're doing. Would love to see them in a New Year's Six bowl game, Orange Bowl, Cotton Bowl. Would love to see them get there. Probably not going to happen if Cincinnati beats Tulsa. Cincinnati deserves to be in the top 6 right now, though. Again, the playoff committee's reasoning for dropping Cincinnati 2 weeks in a row, they haven't played a game. Whose fault is that? Not theirs. Again, how can you blame a team for not playing a game because of COVID? If you are so concerned about the health and safety of these teams and these players, how can you punish them for not playing a game? And furthermore, how can you not punish another team for doing the exact same thing? All right? Ohio State hasn't played anybody in weeks. A&M hasn't played anybody in a few weeks. All right? Cincinnati hasn't played anybody in a few weeks, but we're going to drop them 2 spots in 2 consecutive weeks. But Ohio State and everybody else, now we're good. Makes sense, right? Not even close. See what else we've got here. Eli, I do agree with you. March Madness right now is way better than the college football playoff. The college football playoff can be similar to March Madness if they just expand. I'm telling you, it would be unbelievable to see the difference of an 18 playoff versus a 14 playoff. It doesn't seem like a lot, but I guarantee you there would be less hate, there would be less frustration, there would be less controversy if you just expanded. And again, you're always going to have teams that are going to be left out. If you do 4, the guys at 5 and 6, they're going to be upset. You do 8, 9, and 10 will be upset. 16, 17, 18 will always be upset. So look, the guys that are left out are going to be upset. It's going to happen, all right? It is what it is. But if you just expand to 8 teams, if not more, It will do a world of difference for the game, for the fans, for the programs. You have no idea how big a deal that would be. I don't think the committee and the higher ups, I don't think they realize how big a deal it would be. And these guys that are, lusting over money and views and revenue, it blows my mind they wouldn't be all over an expanded playoff. It's more money. It's more games. Games of importance. So it just doesn't make any sense to me. Yes, March Madness will forever be better than the college football playoff until they choose to expand. And when they expand, select the teams the right way. That's the key. Keto, I appreciate you, man. I'm glad you agreed with those points. I wish they would be heard more. I know there are a lot of people out there, whether here in this chat or across the country, that agree with the points. And Grayson, hey, have a great night, my man. I will see you next live stream. Thank you so much again for the support and for stopping by. Really, really appreciate it. I know there are a lot of people that have these same feelings. Probably guys that are in a higher position than myself that have these same feelings. I wish something could be done about it. I wish there could be some uprising to take down the college football playoff and either make it better or put people in charge of it that know what they're doing. And I think that would solve the issue. Look, again, same thing with expansion. People are going to be upset if you're slightly left out. The 8th and 9th team would be upset, or 9th and 10th. I get it. If you put a panel of college football experts in there, guys that know everything there is to know about college football, watch every single game, study it, and they come up with their top 25 rankings, including their top 4, there are going to be tons of people out there that disagree with them and are upset with them. You're not going to be able to please everybody. But you won't upset as many people as the committee has upset this year, if that makes sense. You know you're doing something wrong when, for what is this, the 4th, 5th set of rankings they put out? Every single set of rankings that you've put out, people have been livid about. And not just a handful, about a certain team. Like, oh, I'm so mad that Florida only dropped 1 spot. Or I'm so mad that Cincinnati, almost every team that is in here, ranked or not ranked, people that have no ties to these individual schools that are upset about these teams. You know you're doing a bad job when consistently the public, the general public across the country is livid, regardless of their affiliation to a team or a conference, all right? You know you're doing a bad job. But they don't care. We're athletic directors getting paid millions of dollars, getting to fly down there to Grapevine, Texas on our private jet, stay at a luxurious hotel, gather in there and drink some booze and get some extra money and get this high honor of saying and put it on our resume. I was on the playoff committee as we gather in a luxurious ballroom with some fancy state-of-the-art computers, punch a few numbers and leave. Who cares what the public thinks? I'm just boosting my resume, just patting my resume. I don't care. I don't care if you're mad at me. I don't care if we get this thing right or not. My dog's on the fight for most of these teams, so why would I care? That's the mindset. And I might sound like a critic. I might sound bitter. But you can't tell me I'm wrong. Come on, let's think about it. We've got to start putting better people in charge of this stuff. Jimmy Chuck Billy, you said you don't think that that Notre Dame would be dropped out because they have their own TV deal. You're right, but NBC's not airing the playoff game. Yeah, they bring in a lot of money with NBC, but that's not going to be a factor when it comes to the playoff. It's not. They have their own TV deal with NBC. Viewers are there. They make a lot of money. That's great. But with Notre Dame being in the playoff or whatever bowl game they go to, it will not air on NBC. So that tie-in for them means nothing. So you're right. On a normal year, yes. Or like a normal game, yes. But for this postseason, the NBC deal does nothing for them. It doesn't benefit anybody else. Eli, I agree with that point too. How do we know an undefeated USC team is a lot worse than an undefeated Ohio State team? And they've played the same number of games and have not played any non-conference games. Excellent point. How do we know? Why is that fair? USC, Ohio State, both 5-0. Ohio State's 4th. USC is 13th. Strength of schedule. maybe Ohio State, one good win on their resume, a 7-point victory over Indiana. That's the only good win they have. USC, I mean, I know they haven't beat anybody that impressive. Arizona State looked good against Arizona, but it's just Arizona. They came back and beat UCLA, who's improving. Didn't even get to play the best team in their division in Colorado. So, you know, I agree with you, though. How do we know Ohio State's that much better? How do we know that? Because, again, what happened this last Saturday with Florida LSU is another prime example of game matters and why you have to play the games. Ohio State has played 5 games. They will play a 6, will probably win their 6 over Northwestern, and they will be a top 4 team in the country after playing 6 games, most against cupcake opponents outside of Indiana and maybe Northwestern. I don't say they were cupcake, but I don't think they're going to put up much of a fight. So, relatively easy schedule, only played 6 games. Alabama, Notre Dame, Clemson will all have played 11 games by the time Sunday rolls around, and yet we're going to put the Buckeyes in as a top 4 team. Why don't we make them? Why Ohio State? They play 5 more games. There's a good chance they might drop one of those games. There really is. There's a very good chance. And even if they don't, at least we would know for sure. I know we're running out of time and stuff, but the Big Ten did that to themselves. Cole mentioned that earlier. Big Ten, they in a way have ruined this season because they tried to bully everybody into. They tried to bully everybody into shutting down college football. They failed. When the SEC and the ACC and the Big 12 said, no, we're going to play, the Big Ten was like, well, crap, we're going to lose a lot of money. We're going to lose a lot of money if we don't show up and play football. We got to figure something out. Oh, I know what we'll do. We'll throw together an 8-game season real quick. And that way we know Ohio State, which is the only Big Ten title contender and the only college football playoff contender. That way they'll run the table, and they'll make sure that would happen. And that'll give the playoff, which will bring our conference more money. That's what they did. And then, of course, COVID cases happened, which was expected. And they changed the rules so Ohio State could still get in. Again, why bend the rules? Why bend the rules? I mean, to me, this is grade school stuff. Kid A does something, and the teacher says it's bad. Kid B does the exact same thing. Teacher says it's okay. I mean, you're bending the rules for certain people, for certain teams. Because again, the Big Ten would not have changed their 6-game minimum. They wouldn't have changed that for anybody else but Ohio State. Because they knew Ohio State was the only team capable of making the playoff. Tough luck. It's not our fault your conference sucks. It's not our fault. Should have planned better. I want to keep scrolling through the comments here. Jimmy Chuck Billy, how are athletic directors even allowed to be on the committee? There are times they will be forced to leave the room due to potential bias. Makes no sense. My point exactly. They're supposed to wear these fancy cashmere lab coats, though, that represent, Clemson.